My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Srisankaran, Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Jnanis. We've been covering quite extensively on Mahan's meditation and some of the benefits. And over the many years of practicing Mahan's meditation, I kind of, experienced a few things. And this whole concept of how, when one practices meditation, uh, when I spoke about the 10 capitals and I spoke about the spiritual connectedness, something very interesting happens is that the connectedness helps you to plug into the different systems that are governing ourselves, our body and the universe that we live in. And it gives you good insights into many things that, as we evolve as a being, it opens up new dimensions. And over the many years, I've been thinking about how do I characterize this? And this topic is a very interesting topic because Mahan spoke about the universal peace sanctuary, and the peace sanctuary within us. And it's not the brick and the mortar, but it's the divine, substratum in us. And, I try to characterize these experiences in ways that make sense to me and helps me understand these great teachings of this master. And over the many years of traveling, my mind became more and more focused and started looking at the things around us and how it helps us connect. Same like how Mahan and other great saints and sages use whatever at that time to connect to whatever their experiences are. So you'll see that in the ancient time, the Kundalini is referred to as the serpent, and various things that at that time that's the what they observe and see around their own ecosystems. So I suppose in the context that where we are now, there are things around us that which we probably did not give a lot of attention, but as we start practicing meditation, we start seeing that new dimensions opening to teach us, help us understand, make sense, and have greater meaning to our own self. So here is something that over the years of practicing that I discovered that within us there is this universal adapter. So let me qualify what that is, right? So I covered extensively over the last few satsangs, weeks and months about Mahan's 3 stages of initiation, how it helps us with discovering our spiritual compass, or what I call GPS system. And that helps us to have that 10 capitals, nurture the 10 capitals of life. That is very important. And that 10 capitals helps us to lead to a happy and a spectacular life. Really fantastic. But interestingly, all this happens because there's something which is we don't observe, but happens, naturally. And I try to figure this out, why this is happening, and are there things around us that helps us to reveal this? And something which is the most common thing that is right, I think most of us have used in our lives, actually informs us, educates us, connects us, and gives us greater understanding and meaning. And I want to share that kind of eureka moment, that moment of really trying to, the aha moment that, yes, this is what this great Mahan's teaching is. And you'll see what I mean. When we talk about a universal adapter, I think all of us know what a universal adapter, if you travel around the world, We all carry our digital technology, our mobile phones, our laptops, our iPads, and all those things. And we are used to a particular electricity, gadget, you know. And sometimes when we travel to different countries, the socket is very different. So we use something called a universal adapter. And this occurred to me one day as I was traveling overseas, and I forgot to take my universal adapter. And my battery died, my mobile phone died, and I went down to the hotel office to see whether if I can get a universal adapter. For almost a couple of hours, I was kind of in a blackout mode. That means no laptop, no phone, until I managed to get a universal adapter. And that's when suddenly something clicked that without the universal adapter, I cannot power all my equipments. And I said, this is a small device that is so important to power all our electronics device that gives us global connectivity and so on. And that comes in different forms because that universal adapter, though it's very small, it connects to the power source in different countries. So though I come from Malaysia, my socket is meant for Malaysia, which is the G socket, But when I go to the US or when I go to Australia, I cannot use it unless I have a universal adapter, right? And the gadget is a small gadget. It's not very expensive either, right? So without that universal adapter, I cannot connect. And with that universal adapter, I can connect to the power around the world. No matter which country I go to, they would use one of those sockets. And that 2 to 3 hours of not having the power helps me to remind me how important this universal adapter is, right? And now I have 2 and 3 universal adapter, when I travel because I have many devices, right, that I need to plug into. So that incident made me think very carefully. If a simple device like this helps me connect to the power, our mind too is unable to connect to the multiple sources of knowledge because we don't have that universal adapter that helps us to connect to that. And that link became very clear when I was in the dark. All my devices were not functional. And I said, wow, I said, this is an amazing eureka moment that told me that within all of us, why is it that we are unable to connect to the higher order realm, the different states of existence, the different knowledge is because our socket is fixed, our mind is fixed, right? And that is, for me, a kind of a moving moment that the simple device illumined me that I have to find that universal adapter in me to help me connect to the power sources of this universe. And that brings in naturally, I say, this great Mahan actually taught us that the universal adapter is actually within all of us. That meditational practice, the 3 stages, helps us to discover that spiritual compass in all of us. And what does a spiritual compass do? It helps us to plug into all the knowledge that is out there and within us. We may have some knowledge, but we are unable to relate it to the universe around us, the concept of God, and all the scriptures and the great things that people have written, including the scientific knowledge. So that small device that we carry in our bag to connect, to power our electrical equipment became very important to illumine me that this simple practice of this Mahan helped us to discover the spiritual compass that helps us to connect, gives us direction from many sources. And then I realized over time, as this was going on, what is it that this universal adapter teaches us? We go to many countries and we now can connect it if we have the simple device. And that many countries are parallel to the different stages of our lives, right? As a student, as a teenager, as a student, as a professional, as a householder, as a community and social worker, you know, and as we age past our professional life and so on, as we age gracefully, that's a different state of our existence. And finally, as we prepare for our final stage. So I realized that as how in different countries, different sources, different stages of our lives are parallel to the different countries as our body evolves, we get into the different stages of our evolution. And if our mind is fixed, we are unable to transition from the teenage to the midlife to more advanced stages of our lives, including preparing for our final stages of our lives. We can't connect to this as how the devices could not connect. So this meditational sadhana that Swamiji has taught, as I was practicing, it helps to connect as a student, as a professional, and a householder, and so on. So it's continuously evolving. And, when you go to Australia, I change the gadget. I can use the Australian current. Go to US, I can change the gadget. In that same way, this universal compass, spiritual compass, helps us to change it, recalibrate it to the different stages of our lives. So for me, that is a major eye opener, or a kind of a mind blowing experience. Say, wow, this great saint has shown me at least this universal adapter. So now this universal adapter that I have has completely a different meaning. Whenever I see it, it reminds me of Swamiji's meditation. So I carry it everywhere in my bag. So in the same way, this Mahan's universal adapter, I carry it with me in this bag of, uh, so that whatever the stages of life, whatever the sources that confronts me, I'm able to connect it. But I need to know how to use this tool really effectively. And this is where we see that this introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation is so important. But everything I spoke about of how allocating time for meditational practice, allocating time for scriptures, allocating time for exercise, allocating time for everything is very important to help us transition from that external world to the internal world and then relate the external world from within our own self. So this spiritual compass requires us to, you know, really spend time understanding this wisdom, knowledge, and also putting it to practice. And I'll go through the different at different stages how the spiritual compass helps us to recalibrate and to enrich the states of our existence. So I wrote this piece, a book called Universal Adapter. I was inspired by this Mahan's teachings and this simple device that was published in 2023. I think I posted it on my journey of discovering this universal adapter. So I want to today speak about what did I discover as a student, because the formative years of my practice was actually during when I was a student, just finishing high school. There was a time Mahan played a key role in my life. And then after him attaining Samadhi, continuously thinking about the practice he's shown in my university years. And so that universal adapter unknowingly and then eventually knowingly completely shaped the student life that I encountered and experienced, which I want to share with you. And I hope that, students who, if they are in this forum, or parents who are in this forum, or people who have children who are studying or in high school or in universities, should pick up this practice and discover that spiritual compass, because I'll tell you how this Mahan spiritual compass helped me in this journey. And I'll go through each one of them over the next few classes. But today I want to focus on a student, right? So, what did I discover, right, in student life? And I really love this portrait. I'm a lover of art, and uh, I like this the art that is written during the Enlightenment age, and some of the deep thinking this artist had, and the deep, profound insights that they bring to the art was really important. And this is where I see that the connection of the spiritual compass brings that knowledge that is out there and helps us discover who we are. And this is a very important portrait, painting that played, that gave me amazing insights. And what that is that it's about a philosopher that is continuously learning. When I mean a student, it's not just somebody in high school or somebody in university, but a student that is continuously learning at different stages of one's life, right? So I tell my kids that, I love school so much, I decided to stay in school forever. So this spiritual compass helps us to be continuously learning new things, exposing ourselves to new knowledge, new masters, new teachings, and so on. So what did this spiritual compass that Mahan has, showed me, reveal? And here are a few things that it helped me. This spiritual compass, or this universal adapter, started recalibrating the effort. Oftentimes in that age, a lot of the effort is spent on material things, desires, want to go out, want to party, all those things. And slowly that effort started changing inward. You become more curious. Sometimes people have this idea that, particularly in the early years, you get distracted. But this, as I started deepening this, the effort became more intensive to discover that, to learn to use that universal adapter better. So I started building stamina. You don't get pulled in different directions. You don't get distracted. And I found that the focus became much more profound. So as a student, I became more sharper in what I was learning. And something very interesting happened is that most students will take a lot of notes, and I take very little notes, but I listen very carefully to the teacher, and everything is absorbed. And then I go back and try to reproduce it. So that was something that was not possible without this meditational practice. So for me, this Mahan's meditation helped me to recalibrate that, discover the spiritual compass and recalibrate it. And in that process, that ability to introspect, contemplate, reflect, and meditate, the meditation also improved continuously. Every day, day by day, it became more and more, sharper and more focused. And that gave greater clarity of thought. And the greater clarity of thought, pushed that effort and the stamina further. And what is really important is that slowly you see that your mind recalibrates. And this is where the adapter starts pulling, making, connecting to the different teachings of great people. And I started gravitating towards the great teachings of philosophers from the East and the West. So I read the Shankaras, and I read the, Lausers, but at the same time, I was reading Carl Jung and others. So somehow you're able to connect. Before I could not connect to this knowledge. It looked so abstract. But this universal adapter helped me connect. Some of it was written in languages that was foreign to me, in Tamil and so on, but we were able to understand things better. And that's the connection that I'm talking about, that the universal adapter gave. And you see that slowly things started making sense, and you now don't take things for granted or believe or have the dogmatic system that we were taught from early on, that just do it, believe in it. But now you start asking questions, you become more deeper, right? And you see that the rational thought, logical reasoning, and scientific minds that start recalibrating and strengthening. And that's what this universal adapter started doing, right? So when you read anything, you say, what does it mean? And you systematically can break it down and understand. So the depth became more sharper, and you started reading widely. As I said earlier, I started reading. I used to study in the library, and I used to sit near where all the philosophical books are there. And when I'm taking break, I go and read these books. And you start reading widely, both the eternal and the contemporary knowledge that captures things that are continuously changing. This is the contemporary. And knowledge that is permanent. This is all the scriptures about the self and the consciousness. And you become a lover of knowledge. You love this knowledge. And whenever you can afford it, you start buying books, keep it, you build your own library, and you become an avid reader. It is very interesting that today I had a chance to do an interview, because Malaysia is celebrating its Merdeka and National Day. And I was asked to describe about Malaysia's Independence Day with a kid who was 5 years old. Very bright kid, very smart, won many competitions. And I asked the boy that, what books do you love to read? And he's told me that, I don't read books. I just watch online, right? So I've never read Enid Blyton books, or I've never read all those novels. And he says, I go online and do everything online. And you can clearly see that the boy is bright, but it's sitting on a foundation that is not solid. And he's always so agitated, unable to focus and so on. And this raised an issue why, great saints and sages say we have to allocate time for deep reading. So for parents that have children, reduce the electronic time, take them to the library, buy them books, get them to sit down and read. We somehow have lost that reading culture. We're trying to start this in our center. In Klang, I do some of the really, deep literature of Advaita philosophy. And in KL, we try to do this. So that reading widely, helps us it's a meditative process itself as we start focusing. And this is only possible because, sometimes you cannot connect, people give up. So that universal adapter starts connecting to Jung and connecting to Darwin and connecting to Adi Shankara and you become more and more excited about this truth that is being revealed. Albert Einstein and all those things that you start reading, you read widely and deeper. You also become open to new knowledge and learning. And you see that adapter helps you to start reaching out to knowledge, and somehow you come in contact with people that have similar interests. And as a student, you don't stop learning after finishing high school or university. You continuously learn. You continuously build your library. You continuously build both your physical and your intellectual library. You're reading new things. One of the best places I like to be is in a bookshop that has got really fantastic books, and or in a library. I occasionally, once every 2 to 3 months, I go to the Ramakrishna Mission in PJ, and I spend hours there, looking at the books, buying the books. The same thing. I go to some of the bookshops and spend quite a lot of time there because you want to know some of the new knowledge, new research that is out there, and you're open to new learning. A good teacher is also a good student. You never stop learning, right? So there is this continuous learning and lifelong learning that happens, right? Wide range of literature, both eternal and contemporary. And that is possible, and that love for that knowledge comes because of the universal adapter that enables you to connect to these knowledge. If you're not connected to it, you would not take that interest, right? And that helps us with the wisdom knowledge. And you can put Buddha, and you can put Mahan, and you can put Ramana, you can put Jesus Christ, and you see all of them are speaking about the same source that embeds in all of us, including the scientists, right? So expansion of our knowledge becomes very profound. And slowly, slowly, you see that over time, it will not happen in a year, 2 years. Over time, you see that your memory bank, your intellectual bank expands. That gives you that what we call degrees of freedom to understand things. And this is how you see that your mind becomes more and more universal. You may come from a particular religious order, but you understand all the religious orders and you take interest in everything, not just your own or a particular leaning. You become more and more universal, truly universal in your mindset. This is what scholarship is. This is what a scholar is. This is what a student is. And this is what a great teacher or guru is. So I learned this from Mahan. Mahan used to stay in our house, and we used to have the encyclopedia, a lot of encyclopedia. My father was a lover of knowledge, and he had a lot of books, and I was fortunate to inherit thousands of his books, which we are developing the library in Klang. And Swamiji used to refer to the books in the morning. You look at the encyclopedias, and although he did not understand the English language, he'd ask us, "What does this mean?" And we've got to give him some, idea of what this is. So even he, as a Mahan, was quite open to that knowledge, right? So that universal adapter helps us to connect, reach out, and empower our own intellectual and mind. So what I saw, what over the many years of more than 40 over years practicing this, is that universal mindset gives us that universal intelligence that able to connect to this. And that is only possible like how the adapter that we have helps us to connect to all the different electricity that is out there in different countries, different Mahans, different teachings, different leanings, without an unbiased mindset. So what did I learn over the many years of reflecting? What is the universal intelligence gives you? And this is something that I've been thinking about, and a lot of my own research, we've been, reflecting back. There are many types of intelligence that we acquire. Of course, there are intelligence that we learn from school, primarily contemporary knowledge. Very few people are exposed to eternal knowledge unless you go to religious schools, or even that, the teachings are very short term and people don't follow through, right? And most of it is done in a mechanical way and not with depth, right? So, but when you take this Mahan's teachings, this meditation seriously, you actually become very interested to know about where all this came from, who we are, what we are, right? And trying to make sense. And that meditational practice, the spiritual compass, helps us to connect. That becomes a universal adapter. So here's what I, over the many years of practicing, I discovered there are many intelligence, not just book knowledge, theoretical knowledge, what we get from our schools or universities or research centers, but something more deeper that we acquire. The first one is actually our understanding of values, and I've been thinking a lot about this over the many years and started writing what the values that shapes our lives. For some people, the values are material, values are making money. And very interestingly, I asked the kid this today, so what would you like to be in the future? He says, I want to be a CEO and I want to be very rich. I say, is that it? Say, yeah, so that I can be a boss to everybody. I thought, wow, amazing how our school system has nurtured the values that who knows will shape the world that we live in. It's no different what we are facing today, right? Everybody wants to boss each other. So these values became more and more profound, thinking about not just maximizing our profits or maximizing our outcomes, but thinking about who we are as a species. It's not about aspiring to make a lot of money, but it's actually how do we become inspired by the things around us, the gurus, the teachers, the scriptures that tells us that we are not just a machine or a being that is out here to maximize as much as we can in this life, right? If that was done, you see, the great saints and sages would not have spent time researching and discovering and unlocking this. All of them will be out there trying to make money. At least the gurus that I know did not do it. They were all values driven. They were very inspirational. They understood nature and the creator and try to make sense and have deeper understanding of that intelligence that powers everything. And when they have a pretty good understanding of that nature and the divinity and the creator, when they understand that intelligence, that intelligence of nature and the creator is absorbed by the mind through the spiritual osmosis. And you become more and more nature centric, you become more and more divine, right? And this is something I learned that, when you become values driven, you see that the values shape our our own life. So this is something I learned that, this values driven and it shaped the core of my teachings and research that I do at the present moment. So this is an intelligence that I found, wow, practicing this Mahan's teaching gives me a kind of a different perspective. And I developed this term called, in corporate world, we talk about return on investment. Through this kind of mindset, I said there's a return on values. And I always ask the question, what is the value of my life to myself, the family, and the greater society? What values do I want to leave behind? And fortunately, that research is becoming more and more globally accepted. So these values shape the way of our lives. And that's something I learned from this Mahan's teachings and this universal adapter that reveals that there is something deeper than this very superficial intelligence and knowledge. Yes, we have a lot of artificial intelligence, but the artificial intelligence is still a superficial intelligence. You still need that inspirational and creative intelligence to really make meaning and have that purpose of life. And the other aspect is that when we have that values, it shapes our vision of what life is about. And when I put here creative, that vision is actually about the creator. We ask this question, everything was created, including all of us. And there is a creator that is the source of this creation. And that amazing how the universe, the cosmic intelligence is so profound the way it designed. And that vision of being able to this complex system, and we are part of the complex system. You know, it is not the vision in the human sense, it's the vision of the creative intelligence that I'm talking about, the cosmic intelligence. So this Mahan's teachings started making me think more on the insight, you know, the intuition that drives all this, into your own vision that is that shape this body, shape this universe. And this is where the creator's intelligence permeates as our creative intelligence. We are able to see many things, we're able to comprehend many things, we're able to visualize many things. And that's what this universal adapter showed me, that there are things that your normal eyes or your normal intelligence would not be able to pick up. But through this universal adapter, you'd be able to cognize things that an ordinary person would not be able to see. So that creators' creative intelligence become part of your vision. So your vision is no more a kind of a superficial material vision. It's a much more higher level of that vision that I'm talking about. It's not the 2020, it's beyond that. And that is what gives you really amazing insights. And this something happened to me because this vision driven, this creative intelligence occurred to me when I was doing mathematics, abstract mathematics. So I was doing the subject called topology. Very abstract mathematics. You have to think beyond your four dimensions, and there are shapes and forms that very hard to characterize in our dimension. But yet you can picture that, we can characterize that if you have an amazing mindset. And I remember the professors telling me, Mahendran, first visualize what you are thinking about and have that vision in your mind before you crystallize it in words and actions. And that's what I mean by vision, that visualizing that profound creators, creative force in the most magnificent way. And that shapes the vision that we crystallize in our thoughts, in our experiences, and in our words and in our action. There are some things that we cannot describe, or we feel it, we experience it, and you try to capture it as best as you can. Right? So it's not just a kind of a humanly vision, it's much more profound than that. And this is where we see great composition of music, poetry, you see Rumi's quotes, you see great mathematicians discovering spaces that we have no idea that, there's this great mathematician called Hilbert. He defined a whole new space called Hilbert space that none of us could figure it out, but it's a dimension that is far, far, you know, only people who study that will know what he's talking about, but an ordinary human being would not be. And that's what these Mahans show, that universal adapter enables you to step up to see visions that an ordinary mindset will not be able to see. And so if you're a scientist and a researcher, you'd have that tools. If you are a business person, you'd give you good insights, different market intelligence that others would not be. If you're a teacher, you'd have fantastic insights to reach out to the students that are the most difficult and challenging. That's the vision I'm talking about. The next one is that when you have that vision and you have that great understanding, you then become, how do I channel that into my day-to-day action? How do I crystallize this? And every time when I think about an abstract idea, I say, how do I translate that? So you become mission-driven or mission-oriented. How do I make it happen? And this is where our intelligence come in. That yes, there is a cosmic intelligence level. How do we analyze it and unpack that complexity and do it in a systematic and analytic way to piece it together? So there may be higher dimension where you piece it step by step and then assemble it back. That requires profound analytical ability, logical and systematic way. And this is exactly what Mahan did. This Kundalini force is very abstract and very complex. He broke it down into simple steps. Step one, this is what you do. By doing this, this is what you get. Step two, this is what you do. This is what you get. Step three, and before that, the flow is everywhere, but he broke it down step by step by step. And then he said, okay, you practice this and you see that he broke down the complexity, unpacked it, and then he said, this is what the benefit, and then he brought it all back. This is what a mission-oriented is. Complex things, you pick step by step, you focus it, you use an analytical mindset to understand each bits and bytes, and then you bring it all together. So you have, as what we say, you know the trees really well, and you also know the jungle. So you have the microcosm and the macrocosm and the interrelationship. For that, you need to have an analytical mind, the analytical intention is mission-oriented to really understand something in the most minutest and the most biggest level. And if you see Mahan's book, that's what he does. He starts with the cell, he starts with the huge, and then he goes back bits and bytes, and it brings it back. This skill set is so profound, having that big understanding of values and vision, bringing it down to the most simplest actionable thing. When we do that, we now can relate to us as a person, how this mission of this cosmic intelligence, we break it down, how it relates to us, and we now can infuse it in our day-to-day life and how we interact with the world and how we interact with others in this world. So we build something called social or relational intelligence, not just with people, but the things around us, right? And you see that those who practice this meditation, right, will have this universal values, great vision of what life is about, the purpose, know how to put it to practice, and most importantly, be able to relate to everybody. This is what a universal mindset is, that ability to relate to everything, right? And the last one is actually, so this is also an intelligence that not everybody have, right? I know people who are very bright and smart, but they lack that social and the relational intelligence. They may know something really well, right? But they can't see the whole bigger picture. Or they know that they are very good, and they say, well, everybody else is bad. So it's that kind of dichotomy that they get. But a true teacher and one who acquired the intelligence will be able to appreciate those micro and the macro, be able to appreciate everyone in this continuum. And that is so important, as this is part of that learning that the universal adapter helps us to link to. Right? The last one is to derive the outcomes and the results we want. Right? And the values, the vision, the mission-oriented approach, the ability to relate everything leads to the outcomes that we want. This is outcomes and results driven. This is what I call operational intelligence. You know how to put it to practice. You know how to get the outcomes that you want. So if you are a student, you know exactly what you want to achieve from your studies. I'm talking about not just high school or university. If you're a student of life, you will know exactly what you need to do to achieve the outcome. You would know exactly how to, if you are looking at financial security, you know exactly what you need to do to achieve financial security. You would know exactly how to do to acquire the jobs and the aspirations that you want to achieve in your life. This is what I call operational intelligence. How do you operationalize the values, vision, the mission, and the relationships that you want to have to create value to yourself and others? So this universal adapter for me has helped me drive these different aspects of intelligence that helps you to tap into profound knowledge of the cosmic intelligence that helps in every facet of your life. Later on, I'll talk about this, right? So it's not just the university knowledge. It's this. Mahan beautifully says this in Tamil. Arivin, Arival, Arivin, Telivu, Telividum, Telivaite in the Jnanam, Jnaname, Unarvu, Unarve, Ungalin, Arivi. He says that this experiential learning shapes the values. This values gives you the vision, the cosmic vision that you translated into your life to have that universal experience and that infinite possibilities and potentialities to be able to understand everything, relate to everything, to achieve the outcomes in your life, which is learning to divinize every aspect of our lives. And this is the universal adapter that my guru showed me, this Mahan and Guru Sankaran showed me. So, what did it leave? The kind of intelligence that it leaves you. It teaches us that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And this is a fantastic quote by Pierre Chardin. So when I started reading widely, this and the artists, the amazing things that they try to describe through the cosmic intelligence of trying to relate to things, as I showed you, the art and the poetry and the music, you become a lover of this universal knowledge and you feel so inspired. Life is really wonderful and spectacular. And you become a student of life. You don't stop learning after you finish university. The university, as I always say, the world is my ashram, the ashram is my world. The university is my world, and the world is my university. The word university comes from this word called universality. Unfortunately, most universities only teach about the material universe and not about that spiritual realm, or at least very few departments teach this. So these great Mahans teaches us about the university of life that teaches us about universality. And if we acquire that knowledge, we become a student for life. And this is what this universal adapter showed me, that you never stop learning. You continuously learn, continuously evolve, learn new things, new dimensions open up until the body drops off. Sandosham.